How you doing today? Welcome to another Bernie Show here on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I am Bernie Burleson. I've been writing and talking about St. Louis area sports since 1985, including college sports like Mizzou and SLU in Illinois. I do 5 videos, write 5 columns each week here on STL Sports Central. You can also catch me on KMOX as part of the Gas House Gang, Redbird Rush Hour, and Sports on a Sunday morning. I also do a weekly Cardinals podcast, Seeing Red, with my friend Will Leach. And you can also find that here recently at STL Sports Central or wherever you get your podcast. I'm also a guest of Katie Wu on the Cardinal Territory video and podcast. Thank you kindly, very much so, for all of your support of my work. All right, today's topic. The Cardinals have wasted the 2025 season, and I will be happy to explain and talk through this and run you through this. Actually, you can make the case they've wasted the last 2 seasons. 2023, 71-91 record. That should have been the trigger point of a rebuild. That should have sent that record sent a message that management refused to listen to. Anyway, no matter what the heck we want to call this season, reset, runway, rebuild, transition, audition, or perhaps this. It's not exactly snappy, but how about this for a title for the 2025 season? An exercise in tedious incoherence. One way or the other, no matter what you call it, 2025 was a waste for the St. Louis Cardinals. A baseball operation that stood for nothing accomplished nothing, unless we want to consider the alienation of a disillusioned fan base to be some sort of accomplishment. I don't think that's the accomplishment that you want, right? And again, I want to go through this. All right, number one, did the Cardinals legitimately try to compete for the postseason? No, because if they really wanted to compete for a postseason spot, they could have done more last offseason and signed one major league free agent, reliever Phil Maton, to a 1-year deal for $2 million. And, you know, in theory, maybe they would have, if they were trying to compete, they would have added talent at the trade deadline instead of subtracting talent at the deadline. Not that I thought that they would do that. But I mentioned this in a recent video, which you can find, you know. The Cardinals are like, well, you're going to hear me say this a lot in this video. They're stuck in the middle. But the Cardinals were stuck in the middle even going into this season, where they weren't flat out terrible. And if they would even made some low-key moves that didn't cost a lot of money, who knows? They could have been in contention because the Mets fell apart and let a team like the Cardinals hang around, but the Cardinals weren't good enough to take advantage of it. Number 2 question, I guess, did the Cardinals deliver what was promised? A reset season or a runway season or a first of a rebuild season? You know, giving expanded opportunities to young players and to do that as much as possible. Well, kind of. I think, yeah, for the most part, but not all the way. Not all the way, because once again, always stuck in the middle. They won't get out of the middle. And when you're in the middle, I would think it's kind of hard to go to the top or to go strong the one way that puts you in the playoffs. And if you go in the middle, you stay in the middle, it also is preventing you from doing what you really need to do to commit to a rebuild and to really find out about your young talent. Okay, as of now, Alec Burleson and Nolan Gorman have played less than they did last season. Less. How does that make sense in a so-called runway season? It doesn't make sense. That's the point. Luke and Baker made the club out of spring training and drew praise from manager Ali Marmol. Remember all that? Him coming out of spring training, all the Luke and Baker talk. I'm going to exaggerate here on purpose. Baker had about 7 at-bats, and they sent him down to Memphis. It was a little more than that, but he hardly got an opportunity, and I kind of get it why. But I'm just saying that's an example of someone that they touted in spring training as going to get an opportunity that never did. And sure, we saw several younger Cardinal hitters receive more playing time this season compared to last year. Jordan Walker, Ivan Herrera, Pedro Pagés, Thomas Saggese, Victor Scott, Mason Wynn. But a few points here. Wynn was already the established starter at shortstop, and he didn't really need a runway. His runway came in 2024. Victor Scott earned a chance to start in center field in large part because the Cardinals did not want to put the fragile Lars Nootbaar there. And I like Scott, don't get me wrong, but we already knew what he could do even before this season started. He would play good defense. He runs well. He steals bases. He's still not hitting the way you would like to see him hit. I'm going to be patient with him because he's worthy of it. And perhaps the investment in playing time will pay off for Scott offensively next season. We'll see. Pagés played more this season, but it was because, that was inevitable after the Cardinals decided to move Wilson Contreras to first base. Saggese played more, but mostly, let's be honest here, it was because of injuries. The Cardinals have taken a look at rookie outfielder Nathan Church, just as they took a look at the young outfielder Michael Ciani last season. Well, where does it go from here? Who knows? Catcher, some people will mention Pozo, the catcher. Yoel Pozo getting the opportunity because of multiple injuries to Ivan Herrera. But first of all, Pozo is not a kid. He's 28. And second of all, he got a chance only because of an emergency. And after a fast start, he's really faded terribly during the second half of the season. Rookie catching prospect Jimmy Crooks was promoted late in the season. He could have been promoted earlier, I think. And he has made a positive impression, even though the stats aren't great. But that's okay because it's a small sample. At least Jimmy Crooks got a little taste of the big leagues, unlike, say, JJ Weatherholt. Oh, that's right, the 40-man, because we all know that there's a 40-man roster crisis. I've been hearing that in St. Louis for like 20 years. Yeah, I'm sick of it, okay? Anyway, of the young Cardinal hitters who did play more, well, how many got better offensively? Scott did get better from last year, but I would hope he would, and he is still well below average offensively. Nolan Gorman improved offensively, and his weighted runs created plus is like 7%, below league average. So he improved somewhat, but not enough. And again, he didn't get as much playing time as he did a season ago. Gorman had a slow start. He had two good, a good 2+ months, and now he has relapsed again since the middle of August. And with Nolan Arenado back in the lineup, third base is taken, and Ali Marmol's going to start Nolan Arenado in every game the rest of the way. So Gorman will not be a regular lineup presence over the final 11 games. So how can it be a runway season when you're really out of the race? And I'm sorry, if you still think they're in the race, I love you, bless you, but I can't join you in your delusions. Okay, I just can't do it. And so with Arenado back in the lineup, third base is taken, and Gorman won't be a regular lineup presence over the final 11 games. So I'm confused how this is a runway season when you're out of the race, you're out of contention. And Gorman, who is definitely a guy that can be big in your future, or you're going to have to make a decision on him. How can he get displaced for a 34-year-old third baseman who has put up such a poor season offensively? How is it a runway season when Ali Marmol is passing on an opportunity to give Gorman more at-bats? Some of you say, well, it's not that important. Maybe you're right. I don't know. But it goes against this. I almost used the word, a word that rhymes with the phrase bullspit. That's my point. This doesn't add up. If this was a true runway season, then make it that, right? Make it that. They haven't. Not as much as they should have. Alec Burleson, yes, he got excuse me, I'll learn how to talk here. I promise you before this is over. Alec Burleson, yeah, he got better both offensively and defensively. His progress was solid, and his overall quality of offense improved by 13%. Don't get me wrong, man. I am positive about Burley, but let's not get carried away here. He's 26, not exactly 22. He was above average offensively in 2024. Now he's moved a little higher above average in 2025. And his slugging percentage did take a nice jump. That's probably the most exciting thing. But as so-called breakout seasons go, and I've referred to Burleson as having a breakout season, I've had to reconsider that just a little because this was a nice season for him, but it wasn't like dramatic. It wasn't like he's announced himself to the world and everyone's, wow, the Cardinals have a franchise player there. And I'm not trying to be snarky towards Burleson, not at all. I'm just trying to put this in perspective. And I would argue that his nice improvement was expected offensively because of his bat to ball skills. And that's a big deal. It starts with there, making contact. Burley's improvement is appreciated, but it is hardly an unexpected or somehow stunning development. He's right on course. That's better than not being on course. Ivan Herrera, yes, absolutely. He's an outstanding hitter who doesn't have a position, but he has an outstanding bat. And I would have loved to have seen the numbers he put up this year if he didn't miss considerable time with 2 stays on the IL. But yeah, absolutely. Here's a guy that has established himself for the future, except maybe where are they going to play him? I don't know. Okay, of the young Cardinal hitters who did play more, how many of them got worse? Jordan Walker got a lot worse. He made no progress. He declined offensively and defensively, and he's looking more and more like a failure, although I don't think the Cardinals have made that decision. I haven't made that decision either. But the point is, this was supposed to be a season where he could establish himself and give you encouragement, and the exact opposite has happened. Mason Wynn, excellent shortstop, but his offense has slipped. Pedro Pagés, his pitch blocking got worse, much worse, and his offense has actually declined by 8% from last season. Lars Nootbaar is not a kid. Still, the Cardinals mentioned him when they were talking about the runway, and the 2025 the 2025 season was certainly set up as a test for him to find out what he could do once and for all. And there were, of course, more injury problems, plus a hitting performance that's down 16% from where he was last year. That's not good, right? Anyway, on the pitching side, Matthew Liberatore finally got a chance to be a full-time starting pitcher. In my opinion, it's worked out well. I'm not saying he had a great season. I'm not saying that at all. But he had to deal with stamina issues that, if you've paid attention to baseball for a long time, as closely as I have and many of you have, if you pay attention to it, you'll know that stamina issues for a guy in his first season as a major league starter, after being in the bullpen for quite a while, this isn't exactly unexpected. I mean, I think it's fairly common, but you can see he's got the talent. And I think the Cardinals can count on him going into next season. And no, I'm not saying, Libby going to be Randy Johnson next year. No, I'm not saying that. Okay. I am very much centered. I'm very much fastened down in this chair to reality. Okay. Michael McGreevy was held back, so much for the runway there. He was stuck in Memphis on the runway as the front office, of course, stayed with Eric Fetty and Miles Michaelis. And just because, by the way, Michaelis has pitched well here lately, he has, tip of the cap. He wasn't pitching well at the time that they kept McGreevy in Memphis. And I'm not like many in the media, and maybe some of you who bought this BS spin about, well, we got to keep him in Memphis because we don't have a lot of depth there in case something should happen to our rotation. What does that mean? As many of you have said, and I agree with you. Since when did Memphis matter more than the big club? McGreevy was not put in the big league rotation to stay for this year until July 21st. So he got less than a half of a runway. That's the way I look at it. Sure, the Cardinals found out about some inexperienced relievers. But come on now. Are we really going to give him credit for that? Because all teams use, it almost seems like an endless parade of relievers every season, whether they're experienced or not. But yeah, there's been a lot to like about Kyle Leahy, Matt Swanson, and Riley O'Brien. Although Leahy's not young, O'Brien's definitely not young, and Swanson is young. All three were inexperienced coming into the season, and they all did well. I just hope, frankly, that Kyle Leahy's arm will survive and bounce back after being pitched so heavily, so hard this season. That scene last night against the Reds was ridiculous. Anyway, the Cardinals will tell us, of course, that 2025 was a success from the standpoint of like they were able to find out about certain players, and that these discoveries will give us a better idea, or give them a better idea, I should say, about how they're going to proceed with individual players. And yeah, there's some truth to that, but only to a point. And when I get into the second segment here in a little bit, I'll explain, what the real problem was. But I say this season was largely a waste because there weren't any thrilling discoveries or big breakouts. I don't know that they came to the conclusion the other way, where they've decided, no, we don't want this guy on the team anymore. We're going to trade him. Have they reached that conclusion on some of the guys who struggled this year? I would be skeptical of that. So, in other words, you wanted to find out more about what you have, but what you found out is kind of, some guys did pretty good with it. A lot of guys didn't. Some were kind of in between. In other words, what exactly did you find out? I mean, it's a total mixed bag, right? There's nothing definitive here. And that's because they're trying to win, even though that really wasn't what the prime goal was in 2025. And I'm going to get into this. Believe me, I'm going to raise some hell here, so hold on. Other than Wynn at shortstop and Herrera's bat, there isn't one other position player that you will look at and say, this guy will be essential to our success for years to come. That's one thing we learned, and this gives us a lot of reason to feel better about our future. I think you feel better about Wynn being here, but again, is he going to hit? Does it matter if he hits? Herrera's exciting. Can he stay healthy? Where is he going to play? Does he have to play anywhere? Can he be a DH? So there's still some questions about him. And maybe Burleson will be one of those guys where you say, yeah, he's essential to our future success. Maybe Libby is that guy on the pitching side. See, there's a lot of maybes still. There's hardly any absolutes like, yes, this guy will be essential to our success for years to come. So we found that out this year, so that's good. That's a couple of questions that were answered in a good way. I don't know. So what's the takeaway from the runway? The stuff we like is the stuff we already knew about and probably expected to see a season like with Burleson that we thought we would like. But the Cardinals still don't know what to do with Gorman and Walker. And they were arguably the two most important players coming into this so-called runway season. Have they made any determination about either one of them? I would have to say no. I guess we'll find out in the offseason, but as of now, I would say no. You may say, well, Gorman and Walker are bust. Okay. If you want to say that, that's cool. All right. I'm not going to shout back at you on that. But if they are bust, then are the Cardinals really prepared to move on from them? I doubt it. I guess maybe there's a chance they'll move on from Gorman because they have so many left-handed bats, but just a chance. See, and part of this big, glorious 2025 runway season was to determine who isn't good enough to stay and be a big part of your team going forward. So if these two guys were a bust, but yet you're going to keep them and take them into 26, well, was it really a runway season? Because if the determination is a negative determination, you wouldn't take them into 26. There's a lot of gray area. That's kind of my point, right? A lot of gray area with a bunch of these guys. So maybe the biggest takeaway is this. The Cardinals don't have enough talent. And in my opinion, the Cardinals should proceed with a more aggressive rebuild, and they should, and we have all said this a lot this year. They need to pick a direction and stay with it. When I return for my second segment, I'll tell you what frustrates me the most about this season. But first, let's talk about something happy and pleasant. Some exciting news from DraftKings Sportsbook. Missouri, get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State. It's going to be called the Show Me the Money State soon. And you can sign up today. New Missouri customers can get $300 in bonus bets when we launch on December the 1st. Download now and place a $5 bet when DraftKings Sportsbook goes live on December 1st. DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, endless ways to get in on the action, all from your phone. And when we officially go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app that is trusted by millions. It is safe and it is secure and it offers fast money withdrawals. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Do it now and use the code STL Sports. Just get yourself set up to grab $300 in bonus bets that you can use with just a $5 bet when DraftKings Sportsbook goes live on December 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You must be 21 or over, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms can be found at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Thank you. All right, welcome to segment number 2 of the Bernie Show on this Tuesday, September the 16th. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can do with one click, and kindly hit the like button as well, and thank you very much. Here's what bugs me about this season. The Cardinals remain stuck in the middle, and that's probably the appropriate outcome of John Mozeliak's final season as president of baseball ops, right? I mean, seriously, that's kind of where they've been. Why would it change now? Over the last 2 seasons, not just this one, the Cardinals went halfway in their attempts to win. Yeah, Mo went out and signed 3 starting pitchers in 2024. I appreciated that. But again, that's kind of, even though let's remember why that he had to do that. Because they haven't developed the pitching on their own, and they've had to go out and chase starting pitching every offseason. And, certainly in 2024. So, and by the way, it wasn't enough anyway. So over the last 2 seasons, I would put 24 in the same boat of 25. The Cardinals went halfway in their attempts to win and halfway in their desire to maybe rebuild or reset. I mean, again, more half and half, right? And when both halfway measures meet in the middle, then you have wasted not 1 year, but you have wasted 2 seasons. Because you're stuck in the middle in baseball, there's nowhere to go. You got to choose what you want to be and what you have to do, and you got to head that way. They don't do that. They cower in the middle, trying to convince their fans that they're still trying to win when they're obviously, maybe they're trying in their minds to win, but they're not doing enough to legitimately win and be a 100% postseason contender. The Cardinals were good for a while in 2024. And they flamed out. The Cardinals were good for a while in 2025, and they flamed out. And speaking only of 2025, the promising start was more of a fluke than anything. And I'll just bring you up to date on that. After peaking at 9 games over 500 with a sweep at Cleveland in late June, the Cardinals since then are 14 games under 500 since with a record of 26-40. That's through Monday's loss to the Reds. That's a winning percentage, again, since June 30th, a winning percentage of .394, which is the worst by a National League Central team since June 30th. In fact, since June 30th, the Cardinals are 4 games behind the Pirates in the NL Central since June 30th. And only the Rockies in the entire National League, only the Rockies have been worse than the Cardinals since June the 30th. So this team may have looked like a surprise until reality set in. And despite what basically could be described as delusional, the Cardinals fell apart when reality came knocking at the door. But the delusional part is this: they still managed to convince themselves they were a contender. This team was never good enough to legitimately, when things started to go bad, and they went bad in a hurry, and they stayed bad, except for one little winning streak here or there. This team was never good enough to legitimately push for a playoff spot. But Ollie Marmol, and he's not the only one, have taken the approach that all of a sudden, it's more about winning now instead of using 2025 as a runway season or the first step of an overdue rebuild. So the 2025 Cardinals have been spinning their wheels, nothing more. They somehow, as I said, talked themselves into, well, we're legitimate contenders. We're going to go for this. We think we can get in there. Even though, let me go back another month, back to May 30th. They're 41-54 since May 30th. They have the worst record in the NL Central since May 30th. And that's a 95-game sample size. So rational people would understand what that truly says about your team. You know who didn't understand it? The Cardinals didn't understand it. It hasn't been the case here. The worst thing, obviously, that happened to the Cardinals was the unraveling of the New York Mets. The Mets have been puking all over the place in winning only 15 of their last 44 games since July 28th. That's through Monday night, last night. The Mets still hold the number 3 wild card, but their problems became a problem for the Cardinals, who slipped deeper into Candyland, Fantasyland, about making a run to topple the Mets. Never mind that the Giants and the Reds and the Diamondbacks and still the Mets are in front of them. And they've been the second worst team in the National League since the end of June. And they've been about 12th in the National League since the end of May. But somehow they believe that they were all primed to make a run. That's what I'm talking about when I say delusion. So instead of focusing on the future, the Cardinals' mindset remained, glued to their recent stretch, 3-year stretch of mediocrity or worse. And the team remained in that infuriating middle. Not bold enough to build a better team when the opportunity was there to do it, and not bold enough to commit to using 2024 and 2025 as the beginning of a rebuild, which had to be done after 2023. There was no clear direction, and pardon my language, but this half-ass attempt to pursue 2 completely contradictory goals in 2025. Chase a playoff spot. We can do it. We're going to chase it. We're in the race. The other one being, well, we're going to lay out a runway in 2020, a runway to 2026. So we're going to chase it. We can get to the playoffs, but we're going to set up this runway that's going to lead us to next year. No. 2 contradictory messages, 2 contradictory goals. And where did they end up? They ended up smack dab in the middle of the road again. Not a true contender in 2025, not embracing a youth movement not fully embracing a youth movement in 2025, not having the courage and the conviction to pick a direction and go strong that way. All of this did was leave more fans disgusted, disillusioned, disappointed, all of the above. And that's only going to make it more difficult for the Cardinals to get them back to Busch Stadium. The Cardinals, before the last couple years, the Cardinals really haven't needed to rebuild for a long time. And the result in recent years have been these half-measure steps to try to convince the fans that you really have a strong desire to win and you're trying to win. When in reality, the commitment to winning was also half-hearted and therefore meaningless. And they put off what they had to do, which is rebuild. And I get a lot of questions about the rebuild, and I understand there's some confusion. I really do. And I don't blame Cardinal fans. Hear me out on this. I don't blame Cardinal fans for not fully grasping what a rebuild means or why it's important, because if the people who own and run the St. Louis Cardinals baseball team, if they don't understand what a rebuild means, and they don't understand why it's necessary, and they don't understand why it has to be done, but you have to go straight to it rather than pussyfooting around, why would I expect the fans to understand? Because the Cardinals just basically have spent the last 2 or 3 years trying to confuse everybody. I think they confused themselves more than anything because they couldn't decide what they wanted to be. Hopefully, and I'm actually confident in this, Chaim Bloom will in fact provide clarity and a clear direction when he takes over. Under Bloom, they may not like what his plans are, okay? Sure, they may not like it. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But at least fans, for the first time in a long time, will know what to expect, and they will not be confused by an endless stream of contradictions and double talk and misdirection moves coming from ownership management. That's the start of going to where you want to get to and really staying committed to it. It starts with being honest about what you have to do and what you are committed to doing. Thank you all for watching. As always, very much appreciate your support, not only of the Bernie Show, but my Redbird review columns and other columns on STL Sports Central and all the other stuff I do as well. Please subscribe, hit the like button, leave your comments, support our sponsors, and a special thanks to DraftKings for presenting the Bernie Show on STL Sports Central. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.